Good morning. I'm early this morning, just in case there's some rain. I've started this live stream a little bit early today. Hope everyone's having a great weekend. Today we're in Baltimore, and we're going to check out the neighborhood of Canton, also known as Historic Canton. It's one of the oldest neighborhoods in Baltimore. As you can see, I'm focused here on the Historic Canton sign. This area was settled in 1785. Pretty old for the United States, not very old for those around the world. I'm on Boston Street at the Canton waterfront. And we'll just take a walk through the neighborhood. This is my neighborhood. This is where I grew up. This is where my parents still live. But it's changed a lot since I was little. Hi, another space nut. Oh, it's rainy North England. Yeah, it's rainy here today too. The sky's really gray. There might be a peak of sun, and then it's going to rain again. So I thought I'd get out a little bit early today, earlier than I planned. So we're here at the Canton Waterfront Park, and just across the water there, you can see Fort McHenry. We'll definitely do a tour inside Fort McHenry one day, for sure. That is the home of the national anthem. The Battle of Baltimore that saved the United States from reverting back to British rule during the War of 1812, which actually happened in 1814. But we're here on kind of the main drag. This is Boston Street. Yeah, we're in Canton in the United States, in the great state of Maryland. But this is Boston Street. And probably up until the 1980s, this was train track. These were all warehouses. Ships docked and continue to dock. There just aren't any today. All along the waterfront here. And you can see a few down there. The street that I'm kind of aiming at now that runs north and south is called Clinton Street. And ships from all over the world dock all the way around down Clinton Street to the Dundalk Marine Terminal as part of the Port of Baltimore. You can also kind of see in the distance there across the water. Maybe I'll walk down here. You can see in the distance there ships at the shipyard. Baltimore's still an important port. Always has been. Across the way, many years ago, was the Baltimore Immigration Station. Baltimore, for a time, was the busiest immigration port in the United States, surpassing Ellis Island for a time. And I think kind of overall, if you look overall at that, 1800s immigration to the early 1900s, I think Baltimore was the number 2 port. I think some people think everybody comes through Ellis Island. They don't. So for those of you who have ancestors who settled in Baltimore, Philadelphia, they came through those cities. They didn't come through Ellis Island. But that's Fort McHenry across the way. It has the small flag, the storm flag, flying today, not the great big huge Star-Spangled Banner flying today. And the Baltimore Police Department has some of their rescue boats here. But we're going to walk through the neighborhood here today and look at some of the characteristic architecture of a Baltimore neighborhood. And that architecture includes the typical Baltimore row houses. We don't call them townhouses. We kind of think that townhouses are a little snobby for us. This is a working class ethnic neighborhood. Baltimore's neighborhoods are characteristically ethnocentric because as they came across, as they landed at the Port of Baltimore, they grouped around with people they knew who spoke their language, who worshipped the same way they worshipped. So little communities popped up. Of course, churches popped up. This neighborhood here. Hi, good morning. Hi, Biggie Cheese and John B. and And Pat, yeah, so, and Pat, you live in Russia. This neighborhood, Polish, Russian, and Ukrainian right here. So that's my ethnicity. I'm Russian and Polish and a whole bunch of other things, German. But this is where those Eastern Europeans settled. Now I'm here on East Avenue and Boston Street. Sorry, I gotta dodge the traffic a little bit. No one stops when people are in crosswalks here. This block here, which is now the Copper Mine Soccer Arena, when I was a kid, this was our playground. This was my softball field was right here where I'm standing. There were 2 fields cat a corner. And then across here, this was an empty lot. This is a soccer facility now, where, you know, local high schools and grade schools play here. But this used to be, okay, to quote the song from A League of Their Own, this used to be my playground, right here. And there were swings and slide. There was the slide of death. Great big huge sliding board. Huge! But no grass. This is the city. So you're playing on asphalt and concrete. So you fall off those monkey bars, which I did several times. You fall off those monkey bars, you crack your head open. But we're walking north on East Avenue, and we'll get a flavor for some of the older architecture still exists here. Now this area is redeveloped and it's great. It went through a Renaissance period in the 1980s and then again, I'd say in the 2010s. This is where all the young professional families live. We have lots of employment in Baltimore around Johns Hopkins Hospital, University of Maryland Hospital. Baltimore is the absolute center of the universe for medical training. And so people come here from all over the world to work and study at Johns Hopkins and University of Maryland. Now this parking lot where I'm standing, this is where the swings used to be here. The swings. And then just before that street down there was the most important place in the world if you were a kid. And that was the Canton Recreation Center. Little recreation building where you got your little rec cards so you could play softball and basketball and ping pong and shuffleboard and bumper pool, all that good stuff. But these condos and houses are all new. Can you tell me the biggest problem of America in your opinion? My biggest problem of America is that we don't give ourselves enough credit, that we allow the media and others who seek profit and power to, the easiest thing to do is to talk bad about someone, even ourselves. And we shouldn't do that. Our history is amazing, and we shouldn't forget it. So just up the way there, you can kind of see a smokestack up there. We'll do another tour someday, but that is Brewer's Hill. In the late 1800s, the Germans who were coming in, they brought their brewing skills with them. And there were several breweries here in this part of Baltimore. I do remember as a kid smelling the hops. Like you could smell. Several breweries were still in operation. Today, those are also the locations of pretty high-end condos and apartments. And those buildings have been preserved. So we'll definitely take a look at that. The great thing about streaming early in the morning is I don't have to worry about music. People are not playing music. But the bad thing about early in the morning is I feel like I'm waking people up, so I'll talk a little quieter. Hope everybody's having a great morning. Now this building here, I love this building. This was a building and loan association, basically a bank, a community bank, when I was a kid. And you can see the fantastic early 1900s architecture on this building. It has been preserved. So as we walk through these neighborhoods, we're gonna look for a bunch of things. We're gonna look for white marble steps, which are characteristic of Baltimore. We're going to look for corner bars. Every block had a corner bar or more. And we're gonna look for these old buildings like savings and loans and community banks because the architecture is amazing. I'm gonna cross over this street. This is Elliott Street. All right. I'm gonna cross over this street and get a really good look. I think this is one way now. Yeah, so I won't get hit. This is one way. They've changed all the streets. But check out that beauty. And look at what they've built on the top. So there's another whole floor. That's another thing about these buildings in Baltimore. You know, these are mostly two-story row homes, not townhomes, two-story row homes. But they've added roof decks and third and fourth stories to some of these very tiny homes. I grew up in one of these little tiny homes. But that's amazing. Oh, and there's a plaque. To see what the plaque is. But these big doors, I remember these doors, and these steps are the same steps. And this brickwork, okay, I'm not making a recommendation here, but if you're a kid, you can climb up. You can, if you wanted to, if you were a dumb kid like me, you could climb up this building. Oh, no, the plaque is just a job site rules plaque. I guess they're doing construction here. But yeah, this was a savings and loan. This was a community bank. And inside, the brass railings and the marble countertops were all pretty cool. I have to touch this door just because I haven't been here in a long, long time. Oh yeah, that door's still there. That is so cool. That is so cool. So that ticks one off our list. Community bank. Now we're gonna see if we can check out those corner bars or those former corner bars. With all the renovation and reconstruction in this neighborhood, families have moved in. Many years ago, it was essentially just the oldsters, the old remaining families who probably did date back to the 1800s. There's some white marble steps, but the facade of this building is definitely not traditional. Now these two give us a great illustration of brick versus formstone. So the row houses in Baltimore, built in the late 1800s, were all brick. And sometime in like the 1940s, this idea of fake stone came about. It's all concrete, colored, different colors, pressed into a form and then pressed onto the building. And you can see across the street as well, the mix of brick and formstone. I do not know what possessed people to do the formstone. Not my favorite architectural choice at all. Hi, Lily Purple. We like the brick better. So when I was a kid, most of this street was all formstone. And then some of the houses started taking it down to expose the natural brick again. So now you have a great variety of different styles in these townhomes. I'm gonna see if I can walk in the street a little bit before getting pushed away by traffic. Now this corner is a good example of, this was not a corner bar. This was a grocery store. And it was called Timmy's Grocery Store, Mr. Tim. God bless Mr. Tim. This was a grocery store. But this one across the way was the corner bar. Honest to goodness, I don't know what it was called. I remember looking at the sign every day. But you can tell the corner bars, corner shops, by the angled door, the angled front door, and the larger windows, and kind of the decorative front of the homes. And as you can see from this one on the corner and this one on the corner, they're longer than the typical townhomes. Hey, Daryl, typical row houses here had 3 rooms downstairs, had like a parlor that no one was allowed to sit in. All the old ladies kept their best furniture in the front room, the parlor, then the family room, then the kitchen. And that was it. And then you had a backyard, a concrete backyard. But a lot of the buildings on the corners, so this would have been the corner bar, and then that corner would have been the savings and loan, and this corner would have been the corner store. As you can see, they extend all the way to the alley, and they don't have backyards. And that's typical of every Baltimore block. So this one as well. This was some kind of little business. I don't remember what. But it also extends all the way to the alley without a backyard. But the houses in between have backyards. So let's continue up this street. Daryl, I hope you're having a great morning. I know, it's so early for you. Thank you for joining. We're checking out a historic Baltimore neighborhood called Canton. Now, my Baltimore accent is going to come back really hard soon. So pretty soon I won't be saying Canton. I'll be saying Canton, hon. Now, this corner store, this was where we got our comic books. My brother would get G.I. Joe, and I would get Transformers. And this was called Mr. Heinstein's store. And this was not a grocery store. He had like housewares and needles and thread for sewing and comic books and magazines. He had a candy. Everybody had a candy counter, though. He had a candy counter. But that was his shop. And then here's another of those old savings and loan buildings. And you can see at the top, the letters in that crest, it says GNB, no idea. Or maybe CNB, maybe Canton National Bank. I'm going to guess CNB, Canton National Bank, maybe. You can see the icons of the Buffalo nickel and the Liberty silver dollar above those columns. Those amazing doors. This was not a bank when I was a kid. This was already abandoned as a bank. It was a bakery, like a commercial. It was called, I remember this, it was called King of Pita. They made pita bread here, and it smelled great. But you can still see the night depository drop here. And just another really great example. I wish there were cornerstones on some of these buildings. It is a little frustrating. It's terribly frustrating. Now, we're on Clinton Street, and there is an architectural study of Canton that includes a photo taken from right here in the 1960s or 70s. And you can pretty much trace the roof line. These are the same buildings that existed from the late 1800s. Why did the stores she talked about close? Oh my gosh, I mean, I'm old. Lily, I'm old. The stores I'm talking about were open like in the 80s. And little corner shops really didn't survive. I mean, there's a specialty photography shop here now. These were like your corner shops where you would, pick up a few things. And now you have grocery stores and chains, and you could get everything cheaper. So, little corner shops really couldn't compete with the larger stores. I'd say probably in the 90s, we had a major grocery store open down the street. And so that kind of kicked out all of the little stores. So yeah, but you can see here, you can see Gunther's Brewery at the top of the street here. I like your pants. We're wearing the same pants. You can see Gunther's Brewery here, and like on another tour, we'll look at all the breweries. And then here on the corner, you can see these are original, these two, right next to new construction. Now in this block, there was a bar in the middle of the street here. I remember that. Everyone's all about their potted plants here. You know, we're in the city. It's concrete and steel and asphalt, but lots of green here. The problem with the green space and the city that does support trees is you do have to be really careful when you're walking, because those tree roots destroy the sidewalks. And you can see the sign there. It says Mike McGovern's. That was not the name of the bar. I don't remember the name of the bar when I was little, but it was not Mike McGovern's. But yeah, that was the bar in the middle of the street. Hey, Abe, good morning. And it's seen its better days for sure. Yeah, everyone runs here. It's good because it's flat, relatively flat. And if you go north toward Patterson Park, which we'll take a look at as well someday, that's where it gets hilly. And here we see some white marble steps, historic brick. The formstone has come down. This is your typical Baltimore row house. White marble steps. In the early days when everyone had white marble steps, every Saturday morning, rain or shine, summer or winter or fall, the old ladies were out scrubbing those steps. The way to keep them white and shiny is to scrub them every Saturday morning. And it was fun as a kid, because you could play in the water. Now this one, we're walking north on Clinton Street toward O'Donnell Street. Captain John O'Donnell, he's the guy who founded this neighborhood back in, what did we say, 1785? He was the head of what was called the Canton Company, and that's why this neighborhood's called Canton. The Canton Company was a trade company, sort of like the East India Company. And the reason why this neighborhood is called Canton is because they traded with China. And this, when I talk about ethnic neighborhoods in Baltimore, this is not a this is not an Asian neighborhood. This is Russian and Polish and Ukrainian. But this entire area was set up for trade, to take goods from those from the harbor there, which we started at, from the Port of Baltimore, and then distribute those goods across the United States. So then in the 1800s, the kind of mid to late 1800s, parallel to the port were the railroads. Huge trading area, and even to this day, a very blue-collar, hard worker town. We talked about today's industry, where a lot of people live here who work at University of Maryland Medical System or Johns Hopkins Medical System, which are huge employers in this area. But also, back in the day, Bethlehem Steel, the steel mill at Sparrows Point, Standard Oil Company, where some of my ancestors worked, and just a lot of industry here. Now, my camera's focused here on the corner of Clinton Street and O'Donnell Street. This used to be a furniture factory, and you can see this is not a townhome. This is not a row house. This is a furniture factory. It's apartments today, but that was there. And then diagonally across, this was Curex hardware store. It just closed a few years ago. That store was there forever. And the people who ran that store were the nicest people in the world. If you needed a hammer and you just needed to borrow it for a few minutes, they would say, here, go take it and bring it back. But this was where you got all your tools and your hardware. And then this little shop, this has had a number of names, but this was always kind of a deli, kind of a carry-out place. It was called Mames at one point in time. There were a couple of other names to it. But yeah, corner bars, corner stores. We'll walk up here. We're walking west on O'Donnell Street, and we'll take a look at a couple more former corner bars, and then we'll see some current corner bars, because some of them do exist. I think I want to write a book on the corner bars of Baltimore. But yeah, so we have these gardens. Oh, those roses are fantastic. But yeah, we have gardens. We have concrete, but we have gardens. Hydrangeas, roses. Oh, it smells amazing. It smells amazing. Typical Baltimore alley with the trash bins, with the bins. And some of these homes have a basement entrance. Some of them don't. Some of them don't have basements. Some of them have dugout cellars. Hope everyone's having a great morning. Hey, Dream Estate, isn't it nice? This is Baltimore. Thank you for joining on, Pat. Appreciate it. Hi, David. David, it's great to see you. Yeah, we're in Baltimore. This corner bar used to be Phil's Colonial Bar and had the most amazing signage in front of it. I will, when I do write my book, I have photos of this one because it was pretty cool. And friends of my family owned this bar. And it was great. But being so close to the breweries, and there is the National Bohemian Brewery up there with Mr. Bo right under the sun. That sign lights up at night and he blinks, he winks his eyes. Being so close to the breweries, you needed to have corner bars on every corner. And just down here, though, was the local bakery, which we don't have anymore. And again, you know, these little stores didn't exist after the 1980s, 70s, 80s, because big stores came in. But this home right here next to this little alley was Herchowski's Bakery. And you could smell it. You could smell the cakes. They baked bread. They had cool cupcakes. But this was Herchowski's. And yeah, you see this little alley? You have the big alleys going, you know, in one direction on these blocks. And you have these little alleyways going in the opposite direction so that you can cut through these blocks. All right, now we're going to head down toward, I don't want to say the most historic place, but because this is all historic, but kind of the hub of this neighborhood. We're going to head toward Canton Square. I'm going to find a really good place and a good moment, I think, which I have now. A great view of Canton comes from the roof of that building, by the way. But we can get out in the middle of this busy, busy road, and it's safe now, and kind of get a view down this street. It's too many trees. But this street intersects with the Canton Library, which is the oldest continuing operating library in Baltimore, probably in Maryland, and the hub of the community here. So we're walking back down O'Donnell Street toward Canton Square. And this is a great view of those characteristic white marble steps. And yeah, Daryl, I will be quiet and listen to the birds. Lily, the brewery, don't quote me on this, but it goes back to the 1800s. That big brewery on the hill was the National Brewery. And you might be familiar with our local beer called Natty Bo, National Bohemian. Actually wasn't brewed in that building. It's a long story. National was not National Bohemian, but the National Bohemian symbol is on top of that building now. A little confusing from a historical perspective. But the National Brewery was founded by Frederick Wunder, W-U-N-D-E-R, and his wife Anna. And there are lots of historic newspaper articles about their delivery wagons driving too fast through the city. So they drove their wagons really fast to get the beer to the people. You gotta love that commitment. They're willing to break a speeding law in the 1800s in order to get the beer to these corner bars. That is to be admired. We will do a tour of those buildings because now they are shishi condominiums, apartments, an awesome restaurant, really great shops. So that's a really nice story of historic preservation, how they kept those brewery buildings and didn't tear them down, which was nice. And here again, up probably beginning in the 1940s and 50s, they would have put that terrible form stone over all of this beautiful brick. And then in the 90s and to the 2010s, people started pulling it down and saying, no, we like the exposed brick. And you can see there are a few leftovers here and there. Someday, some historian will say that they love the form stone. I don't. But that's okay. That's okay. Careful sidewalks. Careful of the sidewalks. So it's turned out to be a good morning. It's not raining yet. So I'm glad everyone could. It's been raining for 3 days. It's okay. We really needed the rain. It's totally okay. So this Canton Vision Center has been here for quite a while. I don't know, probably 15 or 20 years. But before that, it was the Minute Mart. And the Minute Mart was a corner store and where you could get your, fresh deli meats and stuff. And they had in the front of the store all kinds of those little gumball machines that were cool. And my friend and her family owned it. And her name was Min. So Min and family ran the Minute Mart. And across the street, so each of the corner bars had their own, even though there was a bar on every block, each one had its own clientele. This was O'Donnell's Pub on the corner. And this is where pool and darts. So if you played pool or dart, I was a kid, so I obviously didn't go in there. But from what I understand, pool and darts were the thing here at O'Donnell's Pub. And then this was the Florist. This was O'Donnell Florist. It's sad to see it's not here anymore because I think it was here until quite recently. But people move on. Another reason why these stores close down is because they're run by families. They're not owned by companies. So when the family moves on or gets old or no one else wants to take over the business, then they close down. This one, so this is not historic brick because you can see it extends further than the profile of the other buildings. So this light colored brick was added to this house. Love it. I absolutely like it, even though it's not historic. I'm all for it. Oh wait, I said that was the Florist. Maybe it wasn't the Florist because the Florist is the next block. Not sure what that one was. Okay. Can't remember that one. Have to go back and look at some maps. You can find it all in maps for sure. Because this is the Florist on this corner of East Avenue. The reason why this is called East Avenue is because this was the eastern boundary of the city of Baltimore. Back in the day, Baltimore was this teeny tiny little city. And this was, if I was standing here, I was in the county. And if I was across the street, I was in the city. Now the city goes quite a ways. Now the city goes many, many blocks that way. I think the boundary is Dundalk Avenue. So about 1.5 miles from here. But yeah, this used to be the boundary. One side of the street was city, one side was county. It's all city now. This corner bar is still here. This was here when I was little. It's still here today. Waltz in. Now, and this is just my opinion. Don't quote me on this. When I was little, this was the old people's pub. This was the old people's bar. I'm not commenting on what it is today, but this is where all the old men hung out. During the day, they would all be standing on the street corners, all the retired old men, most of whom were survivors of World War II, would hang out on the corners during the day and then head to the bars at night. And this was the old guy pub. I love the way they've, I'm gonna kind of walk out in the street and hope I'm okay here. But I really like the way they've painted this one. So it's formstone, but it's painted formstone. So that's quite beautiful. Here on the corner of East and O'Donnell. I'm gonna see if I can get even further out in the middle of the street without getting hit. Okay. Yeah, that's a great one. That is a good one. And then across the way here, this was a little shop, and I don't remember what that was, but here's the florist. Okay, so the florist is here. And then one of the historic German churches in this area, and I know it has an official name, but we always called it Botz's. And I don't know if that was the name of the pastor there or what, but we called this Botz's church. And I'm sure that has another name to it. But that was a German church. All right, and the florist is here or was here. I think it's still here. I don't know. No, it can't be. It's a little tattered. Looks rough. Okay. Nope, actually it looks like it's still operating. Okay. So it's still here. So the Canton florist is still here. Even though the awning looks a bit weathered. We're heading toward Canton Square. This is the hub. So I talked about the goods coming in at the Port of Baltimore. Captain John O'Donnell bought up all this land and established the Canton Company with trading houses, and actually there was some farmland a bit east of here. But locally, produce and meats and all kinds of things were traded at the Canton Market. And we're coming up on Canton Square where the Canton Market was located. But first, we're gonna see another historic, absolute gem here at the next intersection. I hope everybody's having a great day today. The sun might even come out. I don't know, it was supposed to rain torrentially this morning again. So I mentioned this neighborhood was the Polish, Russian, Ukrainian neighborhood. And then some Germans came in. And at the corner of, this is Elwood Avenue and O'Donnell Street. This has always been the Ukrainian club since as far back as I can remember. So in addition to corner bars and corner grocery stores, there are also clubs, social clubs, several VFW halls for veterans of foreign wars, and then social clubs around the churches and different ethnicities. So that's the Ukrainian club. But here, one of my favorite places in the entire world is the Enoch Pratt Free Library, the Canton branch. This is the oldest continuously operating library in Baltimore. It was one of the first built. There were 4 original library buildings built in the 1800s due to a magnanimous donation by Mr. Enoch Pratt, who believed that everyone should be able to read and everyone should have access to books. And so, you know, almost 200 years later, we still have this amazing place. So as a kid, they knew what they were doing. The kids section was right up front. As you walk in the door, there are the kids' books. This library was also one of the first buildings in Baltimore to be air conditioned. So even as I was a kid, many of these homes did not have air conditioning. And so on a hot summer day, where are you gonna go? Well, you're gonna play at the fire hydrant, or you're gonna come to the library. So they sucked you into reading, and I'm so glad they did. For me, this is where my lifelong love of reading began. Right through those doors, right on the left, was the children's section. And I would grab, even back then, I liked mysteries. Not the Nancy Drews, but there was one called Mrs. Pickersgill. Kind of like a Miss Marple for kids. And I just adored those books. So this was the library that this one did it. Now I'm going to find a safe moment to cross here. And this guy just went right through a red light. Yeah, you gotta, like, people here, they don't care. Red light, and they don't care. This corner store here has always been a travel agent, and it still is. The cruise lady. I forget what it was called when I was younger, but it was a travel agent back then too. But here's a great shot. Oh my gosh, and the sun has come out. Do these houses have backyards? Yeah, the houses in the middle of the blocks have backyards. We'll take a walk down an alley and you'll be able to see the backyards. Hi, John DT from Dallas. Thank you for joining. I know, the sun came out. It was supposed to be torrential rain today. And look, the clouds have parted and I'm getting a beautiful view of my library and someone taking photos of the hydrangeas there, which are great. Now, normally I'd say, let me stop and take a picture. Let me stop and take a picture for the thumbnail. The stream will pause. Just hold on for 1 second. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm back. I hope everyone's back now. Oh, and we can hear the church bells. It's 8 o'clock, so we're gonna just listen to the church bells. If you can hear them. Several churches in this area. Again, a different church for each ethnic group in this neighborhood. There's a fantastic Russian Orthodox church just up this street here with big gold onion domes. But the Polish church, we're gonna head down to the Polish church on the other side of the square that we're visiting right now. And I can smell the sub shop. So John's Carryout for meatball subs. Oh my gosh, I still remember the phone number to call my order in. John, I know, right? There's so many different ways to save old architecture and not tear it down, to convert it into something different. Some of the churches here have been converted into apartments and condos. But this library is still a library, and I can see at the top of that smokestack 1883. So big thank you to Mr. Enoch Pratt, who way back when donated money to the city of Baltimore to make sure that everyone could read. And these libraries are everywhere, but this is the old, this is the old one. But they're everywhere in the city. And I prize this one in my collection of library cards above all others, even my British library card. And big thank you to that lady who is obviously a librarian. And we appreciate her because librarians are cool. And there's the line. We're not getting in this line, but we're going to document this line. There's a shop here that makes a bagel. It's a Krabby Bagel. And people come from all over Baltimore for a Krabby Bagel. And you're gonna see this line in a second. But this is the one of the Methodist churches, which has also been here forever. This part is the historic part. And they used to have a preschool here. I went to preschool here. Nursery school is some day. All right, as soon as this trash truck goes by, I'm gonna cross over so we can get, maybe I'll cross in front of the trash truck. So we're coming up to Canton Square. Today people know Canton Square because of all the bars and pubs and awesome restaurants here around the square. And that truly is a great reason to come here. But you need to know a little bit about the history. So we're going to talk about the history of this square when we get there. And oh my word, the line goes down the block for the Krabby Bagels. I feel like this is part of history. So this church, built in 1890, completed in 1900. This is the Messiah English Lutheran Church. So we'll get a better picture of it from across the street. And the famous 100% landmark, John's Carryout. Hey, owned by the same family forever. Best meatball subs in the world. Great pizza too. All kinds of great stuff. But go there for the meatball subs. So this is the square. We'll walk around the square. But we'll... It's the line for the Krabby Bagels. Everybody gets in line. They come from all over the city for a bagel with crab, like a crab dip on it. Unbelievable. I haven't had one yet. My dad told me we need to try some. So maybe after this stream, I'll actually get in the line and see. But yeah, this is Canton Square. So this square was a market back in the day with a great big market pavilion roof over it. Long story about that roof, and I will make a video about that. The pavilion roof was then transported to the Canton Park where we were earlier today. But here were market stalls dating from the kind of early 1800s. And this is where farmers from across Maryland came. There were many markets across Maryland and in Baltimore. You may have heard of the Cross Street Market, the Fish Market, the Hollins Street Market, but this was the Canton Market here. It's a wonderful park here today. Used to be a playground as well after the market moved out, probably in the 1930s, 40s maybe, I'm not sure. After the market moved out, then it was a playground, and the pavilion was for picnicking under the pavilion. There was a swimming pool. There was a little wading pool down there. Swings, all kinds of fun stuff. And then you see, this is the same, some of the same information we saw at the sign down on O'Donnell Street. But I do want to get a better look at the Messiah Lutheran Church. Again, dating, ooh, and there's the sun. 1890 for this church. Still here today, still operating as a church. It's the church on the square now. Hey, Daryl. Oh my gosh. 73 people watching me in historic Canton today on what became a sunny day. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. Some of the corner spots have obviously been restored and preserved. All like bars and pubs and restaurants, realtors here. But a really cool mix of architecture. This M&T Bank, this has always been a bank. It was Provident Bank, which was an old Baltimore foundation. And then M&T Bank. We got the yogurt and the cupcake shop here. Pretzel store. I love the pretzel store. One of the mainstays of So I mentioned this is a Polish and Russian community at its heart, with Ukrainian and some Germans that came in. And then this pub showed up. This Claddagh pub showed up. And now we got the Irish in here. So this square, although historically there's not an Irish population here, this square, it ends up being the place to be on St. Patrick's Day because of Claddagh pub. And they close off the street. This all becomes pedestrianized on St. Patrick's Day, and they do the whole weekend. So closest to St. Patrick's Day, this place is crazy, absolutely crazy. You cannot park. You have to park a long ways away to get here for the crazy St. Patrick's Day shenanigans that occur here. O'Donnell and Curly Street, I think this used to be, I could be wrong, I think this used to be like the appliance repair store called Bolowicki's. But today, this is a nice quiet spot, a really nice quiet spot. And even before COVID, some of these restaurants and pubs had outdoor space. And then of course, after COVID, it just became so popular, not just here, but really in cities around the world, it became more popular to have a little bit of outdoor space. So like here, Cowboy Row gave up all their parking space. You can't park here on this square in order to add more seating outdoors. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, we are getting lots of birds. Hi, John. Hello, Todd. I'm so glad you could join us. Now, at the other end of the square, this, where we started was the church, the Methodist church, and this was our fire station. This was the Canton fire station, and you can still see, where the garages would have been with the engines. There's still a flag here of the Baltimore City Fire Department. But this was our station. There have been different businesses in and out of here over the years. Usually a restaurant. Looks like one of them is either just opening or potentially closing. And a dentist office here. So, across the way here, dangerously delicious pies. I have had a dangerously delicious pie. I've had the Oreo pie. Holy moly. It is exactly as the name implies here. Speakeasy across the way. Really nice pub over there. And everywhere. If I were to walk up and down any of these residential areas, which we will do on future tours, by the way, so please do join me on future tours. But today we're just going to focus on this square. Okay, I did misspeak. When I said Bolowicki's was up there on Curly Street, it's down here on Streeper Street. So I got that one wrong too. Hey, Ben. Ben, it's not raining. I started my stream early because I thought I would be dodging the rain. But I'm not. But we're going to get a great look at this historic old 1940s sign here. Probably. Make sure I can cross the street. Okay, there's no cars coming. But check out that sign. TV and radio service. Electronic tubes. Now, obviously, that's not what this is today, but they've kept the great sign up there. That's pretty awesome. And then across the way, the local Catholic school, St. Casimir Catholic School. I mentioned the Polish heritage here. So I would call this the Anchor Church of Canton. It has survived not just many years, but also the closures of many parishes in Baltimore. Catholic parishes have consolidated a number of the churches, and this one remains, and this one is beautiful. And this is my church. This is the beautiful St. Casimir Church. And every once in a while you can still hear some Polish music here at this beautiful, beautiful church. Those domes are gold leaf over copper. The roof is terracotta tile. The building was completed in 1925, but the parish dates back to the earlier 1900s, I think 1910. I will be corrected on that. But this parish is over 100 years old. And dzień dobry to everyone out there in this beautiful church. The bells still ring on the hour. Mass is still every Saturday and Sunday. And it's a big, huge, beautiful church. And it's an important part of this community, for sure. And the Parish Festival is coming up. I see the sign. Parish Festival, June 7th and 8th. And bingo. This is where you come to play bingo. And the rectory is across the street here. This is Kenwood Avenue. Now, when I went to school here, they would block this street off at lunchtime so you could come outside and play in the street. Come outside and play in the street, yeah. Play in traffic, yep. That's kind of what we did. Kind of what we did. I would do a tour inside this church one day. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. Because I know some people at the church. It's so big, it's hard to get into one. Isn't it beautiful? It's really hard to get it into one shot. So, St. Casimir Church, named for St. Casimir of Poland, but helmed by the Franciscan friars. So the priests are Franciscans, and the church, inside the church, on one side of the church, all of the stained glass and statues and paintings honor Polish saints, and on the other side, it honors American saints. And of course, Maximilian Kolbe, who was martyred during World War II, is also honored here. The school used to be called Father Kolbe School, but they changed back to St. Casimir School. So lots of devotion to St. Francis here and to St. Anthony of Padua, as well as St. Casimir. So, yeah. All right, that's enough Catholic. That's enough Catholicism for one morning. But we're kind of at the end of where the square, we're going to come back up the other side of the square. I mentioned a lot of young professionals who've moved into this area because of all the business in this area. And a lot of these young professionals have dogs. And yeah, the puppy palaces around here are plentiful. Plentiful puppy palaces. Oh, so this school was completed, this building, in 1955. Okay. My grandmother went to this school, obviously before 1955. My dad went to this school after 1955. I went to this school. And it's still a school. Now, this block I mentioned earlier, these community banks, right? These ethnic communities of people who immigrated here in the 1800s, they grouped together around their churches because of their common language, although they came here and they learned English immediately. They worshiped in their home language, but every day they spoke English, which was a big deal for those who came, my ancestors. But they had their community associations and their clubs, and they also had their building and loan associations. So basically, these were community banks where, you know, Groups of people put their money in so that they could make loans to their neighbors when they needed it. And I think that's wonderful and that's beautiful. And this was one, the Polish American Building Association, 1913 and 1917. And that facade has been preserved, which is awesome. And then we have some trendy restaurants here that have gone through different hands. Now next to Steak and Bone, this blank looking building with an old classic Yingling sign in the window. We're gonna check that out. This was, I'm gonna say, Gunther's club. This was like a men's club, but that's a great sign. This was like a private, these men's clubs usually around veterans of foreign wars. This is a place for the guys to go to get away from the family. I can understand that. But private clubs, like not an open pub or an open bar, but you'd belong to a club, you'd play dues, you could play pool, you could play darts, and here's the thing. Well, why do you need a private club when there's a bar in every corner? Because gambling was illegal. But if you came to a private club, you could place a bet on your darts game or your billiards game. Dangerously delicious. Be more pies and sweets. Mama's on the Half Shell has been here forever. Seafood and chowder house. Chowder. We're definitely going to stop for breakfast. I know we are. Hi, good morning. Do you have brunch on Saturdays? Oh, you do on Saturdays, starting at 10? I'm going to take a picture of that. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so brunch. Brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Good Vibes Cantina. This used to be something else. Was this Nacho Mama's? I think this was Nacho Mama's. Oh, no. Yeah, Nacho Mama's is closed. That's very sad. Nacho Mama's was a mainstay as well. They do turn over here. It is a really vibrant community. It probably, I don't know, when you see the businesses turn over so frequently, one might assume that they're not doing well, but I think they are. I think the ownership just shifts quite frequently. But back to some history. Here at the historic corner of Curley Street and O'Donnell Street used to be Doc's drugstore and soda fountain. Those who study Baltimore history, especially in the early 1900s, probably come across a picture of this beautiful old soda fountain with a marble countertop and with all the taps for all the different flavors of syrup to go into your soda. Also, ice cream sundaes, ice cream floats. This was here until, I'm not sure, maybe the 90s. And I'm so grateful to have gone in there when it was the old soda fountain. Now it's El Buffalo Tequila Bar. But it was such a throwback. And there are many photos of the soda fountain. It was called Doc's, and there's a picture of Doc in some of the photos. And you would get your ice cream sundae served in a metal bowl, like an aluminum, cold little bowl. And they're street cleaning right now. And you'd get your different flavors of soda. And it was just fantastic. So, and you can see the facade of the building has been preserved. Those are not the original windows, but the shape of the front of the building is the same as it was. But that's a really great throwback. I'm gonna try to cross and get away from the street cleaner. No one stops for people in crosswalks here. So just a hint, it's not rude. It's just Baltimore. People always ask me why I don't cross at the crosswalks, because I grew up where there's no need to do that, because no one abides by the crosswalks anyway. This line has gotten longer. Oh my gosh. The Krabby Bagel line has gotten really long. M&L Liquors, this has been here as long as I remember. Your friendly neighborhood liquor store. Everybody needs one within walking distance. And I think I am going to get in the line because I need to know what a Krabby Bagel is. I really do. And it's gotten longer, but that's okay. So I will do that and I will report back. I'm going to just come back here to the square. Thank you everyone for joining me today. I just can't believe that folks want to join me on a little jaunt through a neighborhood in Baltimore. We will do several more neighborhoods in Baltimore. For those of you who are new to my channel, thank you so much for joining. I do historic walks through parts of Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia. I will be in Boston in the fall. Everywhere I go, I try to capture a little bit of history with an eye toward architecture and a particular interest in preserving architecture. And so today you've gotten to see. Hi, Chris. I'm so glad. I know, right? Some of these dogs are crazy. Chris, it's great to see you. We're in Baltimore. We're in the neighborhood of Canton, the historic neighborhood of Canton. And I'm wrapping up because I'm going to go get in that great big line to get a Krabby Bagel and see what that's all about. And awesome, Daryl. Yeah, if anyone subscribes today, I think somehow magically, I got over 100 subscribers last month. That's just crazy. I'm always astounded that people are interested in history, but that's a fantastic thing. I'm so glad they are. And I hate to end the stream when I've got 66 people watching right now. So please, for those of you in chat, tell me where you're from. We're a really friendly crowd here. Daryl and Ben, they join me frequently. Abe is in the chat. I've seen a few other people in chat today that have joined me previously. John King, Kamara, thank you. Todd Fisher, I know you've been with us before. My biggest cheerleader, Daryl, is always here. Lily Purple, I know you've joined us recently. Thank you so much. It's great. Oh my God, this noise. It's really great to have you here. So before the street cleaner gets much louder, Vancouver, Chris, wow. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'll probably do a stream at night, one weeknight this week, and then we'll do another live stream one morning next weekend. Everyone have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for joining. Take care.